welcome to the Final Call News Hour. I'm your host, Herman Muhammad. Now, before we get started with this evening's program, I want to tell you a little bit about the Final Call News Hour. The Final Call News Hour is the partner, if you will, of the Final Call newspaper and the Final Call online edition that you can visit at www.finalcall.com. The Final Call newspaper is the most widely circulated black-owned and operated publication not only in this country but in the world. It also is the communications organ of the Nation of Islam. The Final Call News Hour is produced by the Ministry of Information under the direction of Brother Corey 2X. The Ministry of Information was born from the Millions More movement, which was launched in October of 2005 in order to bring all of our people together for the common cause of our future survival. The overall mission of the Final Call News Hour is to bring an alternative source of news and commentary to our viewers. This is very much needed because although it is said we live in a free society with freedom of press, all of America's major media, both print and electronic, are owned by 5 major corporations, which we believe amounts to a monopoly on information. So the Final Call News Hour is a vitally important program. Now, the issue that we're dealing with today comes out of volume 27, number 8, which reads, Muslims Under Siege, and it's dealing with a U.S. House of Representative bill that was just passed very recently. So we'll get right into that. Now, tonight we have a special guest. He's a brother who's a longtime follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was a minister under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and is a student in the ministry under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He has nearly 50 years of Islam under his belt. I want to welcome our brother Sabir Salim Muhammad to the program. Walaikum assalam, sir. All right. Now we're going to get right into it. Now the first article that we're going to deal with tonight appears on page 3 of this edition of the Final Call newspaper. And it's written by a Sister Charlene Muhammad, who's a staff writer who writes out of Los Angeles, California. Now, for our viewers, last week we started something that we want to continue this week, although we've changed the number. And we're going to do it a little bit differently because it was a little bit distracting last week the way we did it. So if you want to be part of the show, you can text in your question or your comment to area code 720-333-7271. And Brother Corey will put that on the screen. And what we'll do is towards the last part of the show, the last 15 to 20 minutes, we'll answer all of those texts. So text in, let us know what you think. Let us know your questions because they're very valuable to us. All right. Like I said, this first article appears on page number 3, and it reads, Homegrown Terror Law Threatens Muslims, Further Erodes Rights for Americans. And this is an article, like I was saying, that was written by Charlene Muhammad, and is dealing with civil rights and really Muslim rights activists protesting this bill that was just passed by the House of Representatives. Now, Brother Sabir, I'm going to read a little bit here, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
It says, the Los Angeles Police Department recently scrapped a plan to map Southern California Muslims and their communities through its Counterterrorism Bureau. National civil liberties groups and Muslim organizations protested the plan as extreme racial profiling. Then she goes further on to write, the activists fear LAPD's Muslim mapping project was an early glimpse at how the U.S. law enforcement plans target Islamic groups through the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act that was just passed this year. Now, my first question, Brother Sabir, is what do you make of the fact that the LAPD even had a plan to map out the whereabouts of Muslims?
First of all, I want to thank you for the invitation to be on your show, and I'm very happy and very honored to be here. When we speak about terror and terrorism, you know, it's kind of like it's talking about beauty. It's in the eyes of the beholder.
Right.
You know, if I'm sitting in my home and somebody crashed through my door and start shooting at random and killing my
Right.
children. And if I get my gun and start shooting and run him out, then you couldn't really say that I'm the terrorist.
Right.
Because I'm protecting what I love and I'm defending what I have.
Yes, sir.
And so we have to define what terrorism is. And the fact that L.A. Would be the first to launch such a program, it would take us back to World War II during the time of the Japanese
Yes, sir.
bombing of Pearl Harbor, when the Japanese in California was rounded up and put in detention camps.
Yes, sir.
You know, and so it would be kind of hard for them to do that today, because there are way more Muslims now than there were Japanese back there in 1941.
Absolutely.
But it just goes to show that people are planning for our distinction as Muslims in general, and black people in particular.
Yes, sir.
And if California has a plan, and I'm sure there are other major cities has the same kind of a plan, because we can see that there is a great assault on our black youth in particular.
Sir. Absolutely. Yeah, very answers is full of wisdom. And Brother Sabir, you know, let me apologize, because I said that you had that 50 years of Islam under your belt, but I didn't really give you an opportunity to let the viewers know a little bit of your background. So if you could, just tell us a little bit about yourself so that the viewers know who they're listening to this fine evening.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I was introduced to Islam in 1957 in Buffalo, New York. And upon first hearing about Islam, naturally it was strange, it was different, but I've always had kind of a curious nature, and therefore I wanted to know more about what I was listening to, what I heard. And so I visited the mosque in Buffalo and attended a few meetings, and it just resonated with my nature, you know, that it was telling me something about myself.
Yes, sir.
It was giving me something that would elevate my self-esteem and to make me realize that I am a human being, that I'm a child of God.
Yes, sir.
So I accepted Islam in 1957. Coming this December the 13th, Allah willing, I will be in the Nation of Islam 50 years.
Yes, sir. Praise
So I'm
be
very
to Allah.
honored and very thankful for that. After being in Islam in New York for about 6 years, I transferred to Los Angeles, California. And it was there that I got into the ministry class under the minister John Shabazz, who is now Abdullah Muhammad. And it was one Monday night, we were having our student ministers class, and I came to the mosque. And when I walked into the student ministers class room, everybody started, you know, applauding and clapping. And I'm wondering, well, what's going on here? You know. And so then I find out that they had selected me to go to San Diego, Mosque number 8, to be the minister there, to replace the minister that was there at that time.
Yes, sir.
So I spent 8 years in Southern California, San Diego. And from there, I went down to Phoenix, Arizona, and I worked there for a year. And then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was spending a lot of time in Phoenix, Arizona at that time. And he was getting some mail from people in Denver requesting a minister.
Right.
So he asked Brother Jabril, who was the minister in Phoenix, to have me to go to Denver and do an investigation.
Right.
And so I flew to Denver and investigated the Muslim community, went back and gave him a report. And so about a month later, he wrote me a letter. And in the letter, he said, brother, you may go to Tucson to be the minister, or Denver. And he said a few more words, and then at the bottom of the letter, he said, brother, the believers in Denver are expecting you this Sunday.
Right.
So that's how I got to Denver, Colorado.
Yes, sir.
And I've been in Denver since 1970.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Very good. Very good. So now we get right back into it.
Yes, sir.
Next question. Because, you know, dealing with this Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act that was just passed by the House of Representatives. Why do you think that the government is coming with all of this anti-terrorism legislation now, even though it's been over 6 years since the last major so-called terrorist attack, which occurred on 9/11?
Well,